it was a project that everyone was saying that it shouldn't be done. Like, you know, we're going to get ex-offenders, we're going to train people with lived experience, we're going to get them out there supporting other gang members. And the reality is they were saying, you know, these gang members will tell the young people everything. It will backfire. I remember hearing those words before I started work on the project. That time I was still a serving prisoner. And I thought, but you see what's happening here. People are ready to judge me before I've even started. And then halfway through the first year, people were saying, you know, don't worry, you know, projects have only got a shelf life of about 3 years. People move on. I think the story of SOS and the very fact that we're 15 years old this week and we're still celebrating it is a big, big testament to the trust that St Giles had in me. You know, many organisations overlooked me. They thought, well, actually, you know, all they saw was that criminal record. I think it's a massive testimony to my family. They stuck by me I spent 260 weeks in prison, and every single one of them, my family were there. Yeah. The project reaching 15 years is a massive testimony to anyone with a criminal conviction who's actually thinking about their ways forward and they want to turn their lives around, and they're worried, they're concerned about how they're going to do it. Will people give them that chance? But it's a massive, massive, massive testimony to all those young people caught up in criminal cycles, either through exploitation, being groomed, or actually whether it's through choice or lack of availability of other choices. This project stands to give those people a second chance. And, you know, and this is something that St Giles has been talking about for decades. You know, the value that people have with convictions, and you know, we've been talking about the amount of benefits that they bring to us as a service, but how much more they can contribute for society. And you know, I'm a passionate advocate of young people and their families. The situation that we're looking at now is families are being pushed to the brink. I know it's quite an easy thing to say, well, this is their problem, this is not ours, but I can honestly tell you, families are being pushed to the brink. You know, we've got rising costs. Today they're announcing, you know, a cut, which doesn't seem a lot, but is massive. When you take it within the context, you know, I had a phone call a couple of weeks ago from my mum whose electricity bill alone she's going to have to raise an extra £200 a month. And you have to ask yourself, well, where's that money going to come from? You know, that's going to come from food on the table. That may come from, like, you know, that's not going to mean holidays, is it? It's going to actually mean like actually cutbacks in what the family can eat. It might be cutbacks in how the family can transport. It might mean that the mum might have to work more hours, which means that the kids are going to be in with the absence of a parent for longer. You know, these are the very, very real issues that we're combating. And when you look at the results for SOS, you see there's massive time put in just helping families to stabilize. I'm so proud of the team and all of the work they do. You know, this is a massive testimony to their consistency, and it's a massive accolade, I think, that we're still standing 15 years on. You know, so on average they're ploughing in around, you know, according to the latest statistics, they're ploughing in around 200 hours into each and every family. And you know, when we think about that, we actually have to take into account that what we're seeing outside isn't a lack of goodwill. There's many agency workers that are out there that have got goodwill. No one wants to see families suffer. But the reality is their frameworks are dated. Their frameworks work against them. You know, their frameworks that are sort of like limited by time. You know, so, you know, it's not like they can't build good client relations. They just don't have that time scale. And one of the amazing things that we've got is our team. They're very passionate, they're very dedicated, but also because they've got that lived experience, they understand what the reality is. And so they often routinely go above and beyond, you know, to ensure that young person is safe, to ensure that person has the support that they need. You know, and the reality is, what our fantastic workers do and continue to do is that they've become whatever it is that's missing from that young person's life. For some of our workers, they're an alarm clock. They're the ones getting the young people up in the morning. For some of our workers, they're the benefits advisor. You know, they're the ones that are helping the family out with the benefit. For some of our clients, the young people we work with, they've become their older brothers and sisters. You know, they're the ones that are passing down that tough love, that guidance, that advice. And for some of our workers, they might even fulfill roles that are in the courtroom. You know, if the judge listens to what one of our workers has to say, they may make a decision not to put that young person in custody. And with that, stop that young person becoming criminalized, because we do know this, don't we? We know that once someone becomes criminalized, it's a negative downward spiral, you know, and once you've got a criminal record, it becomes even harder to break that negative cycle. I think it's really important as well when we can, you know, I'm proud of SOS, but I'm massively proud of SOS Plus, because when we consider back in 2008, when we were talking about record numbers back then, a number which, by the way, is tripled now. Like, you know, back then we were talking, what, 52, 62, Rob? Like now it's 100, like the last year before lockdown, it was 150. That shows you how much things have gotten worse and how much more tougher things have become, you know. And one thing that we can honestly say as a service, 15 years, is that we're still standing, you know, we're still here, we're still providing that consistent support. And yeah, I'm just over the moon. You know, it's a shame. My sister Carmen, she would because the ethos of SOS that I've always had and built in it from the start is that we're like a family, you know. And in fact, just like those sort of families, once you're inside, you can never leave, right? But my sister used to come down and she'd cook for all the team. And you know, because she honestly felt that was her putting something in as you know, the big sister of the family coming in to cook. But you know what she told me the first time we came down, there was loads of clients. This is a big thing about St Giles, you know, we're always working as society's most vulnerable, and there were loads of clients downstairs that hadn't eaten in a week. And one of the young girls cottoned on to my sister, sort of like asking her, is the food okay, can she have some? And my sister says, yeah, sure, you can, go for it. And she told me how the girl grabbed the food with both hands. And ever since that year, that was back in 2009, she's always come in to cook for the team ever since. That just goes to show about the need that we have out there in our society. And I can't get my head around whether people turn a blind eye to it or whether they can just stomach it and accept it, because that's not them and that's not their children. I want to urge every single one of our supporters, everyone listening. I mean, if you're a supporter, you know what we stand for anyway, but we as a society, we've got to fight against, and we've got to resist looking away. And actually, let's take a closer look about what's happening, and let's really support the families in need. Like, SOS wouldn't be where we are without our supporters. And this is my last thanks to everyone that stood by us over these years. We wouldn't be where we are without the supporters, the people that advocate for us, the people that talk about us within the circles, the people that have introduced us into their networks. This is a massive pat on the back to you. And it's a massive thanks from the bottom of my heart. We would not be where we are without your support. I just want to ask you to continue spreading the word about the project. You know, at the beginning, when we started doing the SOS anniversary events, and I remember back, do you remember, Rob, 2008? It started as a way of, that year, again, the darkest year for serious youth violence for young people. What we wanted to do is have an event where we were celebrating the achievements of our young people. Well, SOS now is so massive that if we was to run an award event, we'd probably have to run it all month. Because there's so many parts of the team creating so many consistent outcomes. So I just want to give a big round of applause for the SOS Plus team, and for all of the supporters and the people that stood by us. A massive thank you from the bottom of my heart.